Allied forces deal with the last Iraqis inside Kuwait City. Isolated fighting continues after yesterday's declaration of a ceasefire and the end of a 20-hour siege in Sydney's southwest. Good evening. The liberation of Kuwait City was completed today as Allied forces flushed out the last pockets of Iraqi resistance. Diplomats are moving back into their embassies, but there have been horrifying stories of atrocities during the Iraqi occupation.
It looked like the long-awaited invasion of Kuwait City. In fact, these special services troops made their spectacular appearance to ensure the safety of British, American and French ambassadors, dropping in to check each embassy for Iraqi booby traps, to blow doors open with explosives, clearing the way for the safe and politically significant return of the Allied ambassadors.
How do you categorize the behavior of the Iraqis in their last 3 days?
I think barbaric is perhaps too weak a word, but that's the best I can do for the moment.
On the streets, they're continuing to celebrate the most simplest of pleasures, just being outside without the continual harassment of the Iraqi invaders. Still, the large majority of the population can't work because Saddam destroyed the system. The children are 7 months behind in their schooling, there's no running water, no electricity, and they queue for hours for fuel. Welcome. The streets are full of rubbish, they're battle-scarred, and they're dangerous.
Kuwaiti resistance fighters moved in on a library today to flush out Iraqi soldiers hiding there. The Kuwaitis had help from U.S. troops.
Want to put fire on that building with a 40 millimeter?
Not yet. Wait a minute. Let's
get the civilians out.
The Americans waited a few minutes before opening fire on the library. Kuwaitis stormed the building and captured the squad of Iraqi soldiers.
Now the shooting has stopped. The Kuwaitis wait expectantly for the return of their lost population. Those kidnapped by the Iraqis, mostly young men, missing perhaps as many as 30,000.
My brother also, he wanted to go to the mosque to pray. And before he go, they catch him and took him to somewhere that we don't know where.
Iraqis murdered and tortured Kuwaitis, often to avenge the deaths of Iraqi soldiers killed by the resistance.
That's right, said this man. We did it. We are soldiers. What are we supposed to do? We do what we are ordered.
The Iraqis dumped the bodies and the resistance stole them away, placed them in a mortuary for today's gruesome exhibition of Iraqi madness.
One of my cousins was killed. They shot 14 shots in his head.
14 shots?
14, yeah. And he threw him just like this, in the street.
This resistance fighter says the Iraqis held him 2 months. He said he was forced to sit here and was tortured with fire.
Under the chair there's a fire. And they told us to sit in it without clothes.
Around this city, Iraqi soldiers are still appearing out of the huge, sometimes burnt out and deserted downtown buildings. If Saddam is forced to pay compensation, just the cost of rebuilding nearly all of the five-star hotels in Kuwait City could cost him dearly. On Saturday night, before they ran, Iraq soldiers ordered all the guests and staffs out into the streets. They poured diesel fuel into the foyers of the hotels and the upper floors and put them to the torch. Thousands of wrecked and abandoned tanks littered the Kuwaiti towns and deserts. Signs everywhere of mass panic.
Kuwait International Airport, and out on the stand, the gutted wreck of the British Airways jumbo jet, caught on the ground during the August invasion. It had been thought the aircraft had been flown to Baghdad. Airport officials said Iraqi troops blew up the $150 million aircraft 10 days ago.
Already today, people have been injured after walking on landmines buried in the sand on the beach. And this Iraqi tank, it lies deserted, but it's still deadly. Not 15 minutes ago, they found inside a half a dozen hand grenades. Kuwait City may be free, but it's still a death trap to the unwary. Robert Penfold, National 9 News, Kuwait City.
Kuwaitis can't thank George Bush enough for winning it back.
And you will go down in history as the great liberator of my country.
I just can't tell you what's in my heart, but I am very pleased. very proud that your country's free.
Bush was also pleased that Iraq's agreed to his demand for a meeting of military chiefs from both sides to formalise the ceasefire.
We're going to get together and send high-level military representatives, and we are going to get back our POWs, and we're going to do it fast.
At the United Nations, Iraq's ambassador said his government would give Washington everything it wants, but in Baghdad, still no hint of defeat in the official message pumped out on government radio. People were told Bush called the ceasefire only because Iraqi troops inflicted heavy casualties on the enemy. America's nose had been rubbed in the sand. Israelis had no doubt who won. They packed away their gas masks, dismantled their sealed rooms, and went out into the street to party, confident Saddam and his scuds were a threat no more.
We agreed on all matters.
Allied leaders show pleasure at the conclusion of today's ceasefire talks. Welcome back to our coverage of the Gulf situation. I'm Marianne Laughlin. For almost 2 hours at an Iraqi desert air base occupied by the Allies, military commanders from both sides met to discuss Allied demands. The commanders faced each other across a table, the Iraqis knowing full well that the Allies could resume the war in a heartbeat if Baghdad did not agree to the Allied demands. But the U.S. commander, General Norman Schwarzkopf, emerged from the talks to say the Iraqis agreed to the list of demands which must be met in order to secure a formal ceasefire at the end of the war.
Let me just say that we have just completed what I think were very frank, very candid, and very constructive discussion with the Iraqi military. The purpose of this meeting, as stated previously by the President of the United States, was so that we could agree on certain conditions that were necessary to continue with the cessation of hostilities and the cessation of coalition offensive operations. I am very happy to tell you that we agreed on all matters. Some of the subjects that were discussed were control measures to ensure that units, armed units of the coalition, do not come in contact with armed units of the Iraqi military that result in any more deaths. We have received information on the location of minefields in Kuwait and minefields in international waters so that we can begin operations immediately to make those areas safe. We have also made it very clear that upon the signing of a ceasefire, but not before, all coalition forces will be drawn back from Iraqi territory that we currently occupy. The most important point that we discussed was the immediate release of all prisoners of war. We have agreed that this release should be immediate. We have agreed that The details of this release must be worked out by the International Red Cross, but both sides have agreed that we will do everything we can to work with the Red Cross to, as rapidly as possible, determine locations and times. We have also asked that, as a token of good faith on both sides, that we have a symbolic release immediately. And I feel sure, based upon our discussions, that such a symbolic release should take place. We have provided the Iraqis with the names of all of the missing in action, and we have asked for as much information as we can get concerning those missing in action. We have also asked them to provide us with the names of anyone who may have died while they're in their custody, and we have also asked for the return of the remains. I would just say that I think that we have made a major step forward in the cause of peace, and I have every expectation that if we continue the open and frank and cooperative dialogue that we had today, and I would say very candidly that the Iraqis came to discuss and to cooperate with a positive attitude, that we are well on our way to a lasting peace.
The agreement follows United Nations Security Council approval on Saturday of a ceasefire resolution setting stiff terms for Iraq. Schwarzkopf says Iraq must next formally accept that ceasefire resolution. If Baghdad is agreeing to the conditions laid forth in the latest UN resolution, it could mean a quick end to the embargo. CNN's Peter Arnett is in Baghdad. He joins us now live with the latest. As always, Peter is monitored by an Iraqi official who can censor his remarks. Peter, hello.
Yeah, good afternoon. The Iraqi government has not officially confirmed General Schwarzkopf's comments. Officials around the hotel, Iraqi officials who learned from CNN the announcement, were delighted, relieved. They were saying they had relatives at the front. They're looking forward to seeing them come home. We've seen mothers, brothers at terminals, bus terminals, waiting around for the soldiers to return from the front. Now, there was a huge explosion around the hotel just 20 minutes ago, reminding us there was a war here not so long ago. It turned out to be demolition teams blowing up an unexploded bomb near the 14th of July suspension bridge that was destroyed a few weeks ago. But that was a reminder that the war was not far away. It did throw people into some kind of panic for a minute. There have been questions about the whereabouts of Saddam Hussein. The Iraqi television sent us videotape today showing what they said was a meeting of Saddam Hussein with two of his top ministers in Baghdad yesterday. They were the information minister, Latif Jazim, and the minister of industry, Hussein Hassan, and also the deputy assistant chief of staff of the army, General Abdul al-Maini. The Iraqi television said they were discussing plans to resume media communications here, to get television on a few hours a day, to get the industry, at least to get power moving along. So Baghdad is trying to get ahead with putting their lives together following that agreement in the desert. This is Peter Arnett, CNN, reporting live from Baghdad.
Actually, I would say the numbers of executed people, tortured and then executed, wouldn't be more than hundreds. That they start torture people by simply beating them to more severe status where they start to cut arms or legs or ears. In some cases they extract the eyes. But those who were captured and tortured and then sent out or thrown to their families again, that would be more than thousands.